that. So people force themselves to learn English because they think they need it for work, for life. It's important. They're not really interested, but they push themselves. I mean, that's not too bad either. But I always try to ignite the passion in my students to show them language is beyond just passing an exam or getting a good job. You know, you can really enjoy speaking the language and listening and practicing it.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Tutor's Take by the PaperTrue studio. My name is Tanvi and I'm your host for this episode. I'm excited to be joined by Maria Zen today from British English with Maria. She is a bilingual professional teacher of English as a foreign language, born in Siberia, raised in London. She's been teaching for over 6 years and is passionate about her students' learning. She comes from an accounting background and is a keen linguist, speaking and improving her French, Spanish, and Italian languages. In her spare time, she loves international cinema, to walk in nature, dancing, yoga, and painting whenever she feels inspired. She is funny, intelligent, and has interesting stories to tell. In this episode, we talked about Maria's experience of teaching her very first English class. We discussed about challenges her Russian students face when they are learning English, and towards the end, she gives really cool app recommendations to help you practice the English language in a fun way. Without further ado, let's dive right into the episode. I am so excited to have Maria with me today, who's from British English with Maria. So, Maria, would you like to give us a little introduction about yourself? So, who you are and what you do?
So thank you, Tanvi, for reaching out to me to do this interview. I'm currently a professional online, mainly a teacher of English as a foreign language. I teach private students online for different purposes, for business situations, for interviews, just to develop confidence of speaking, exams, different reasons and different ages as well, and from different countries. Would you like me to tell me a little bit about my background, or is that?
Yes, definitely. I would love to know.
Sure. So you can probably, those of you who have very good ears can hear I don't have a perfectly British accent. Okay. I have British pronunciation. The reason for that is because I was born originally in Russia, Siberia. As of sort of late childhood, I moved to the UK, to London, where I grew up. So that's probably why I will always have a bit of a twang in my accent, but that's to say, it's okay, guys. You can be fluent, speak perfectly, and you don't need a perfect accent, or whatever the perfect accent is, as people say. In terms of my teaching background, I kind of started teaching as an experiment. And that probably sounds really bad because it sounds like, I think there is a tendency for a lot of people to think teaching is an easy job and, I don't know what to do. I'll just teach English, And it was an element of that for me, as I'm from a finance background, but then I decided to change my jobs, to change my life. And I tried teaching English in Russia as I went back to my hometown in Siberia. But it turned out that I'm actually a good teacher. I'm a passionate teacher. It seemed that my students enjoyed my lessons. They were learning, progressing. And, I've been teaching for the last nearly 6 years now. It's been a love story, mostly a love story. So, and I continue teaching to this day. Yeah.
Wow. So you are definitely a good teacher. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I can say that because I've been through your Instagram profile and I totally love the content that you're creating there. So, yeah, I mean, and also you said that you've been from Russia and still you took up teaching English. So, which is another great thing to do. And
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess speaking English is one thing, and then when you teach, you have to, learn those grammar rules and all of that. So I guess
Absolutely.
that is one aspect, and then one aspect that no one notices. So
I think some people know it, some people don't. Some people think just studying with a native is enough to learn English. And it's true to an extent because you learn the colloquial expressions, the way manner of speaking. However, if you want to understand grammar, if you want to understand the lexis, why, if you want to maybe draw the parallels, between your own language and English, a professional teacher can help you do that for sure. So I get asked question sometimes if I teach Russian, because I'm a native speaker of Russian too, and I say, of course I don't, because it's a very complex grammar, very complex language, I think, and to teach it, you need the knowledge, the skills, the ability to explain the rules, to focus on the difficult sounds, to know common mistakes. And that comes from training and experience. So absolutely, you're right. Yeah, it takes more than just knowing the language fluently to be able to teach it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it turns out that you are a linguist, Russian and English. And I guess from a previous question, I remember that you're also learning French and Spanish.
Very good. Yes. I forgot my Italian, although recently I've been watching Italian films as well. But yes, I love this Roman languages, Latin languages. I tried to learn German, but that didn't go very well for me. And I think it's the main part is motivation. So I guess when it comes to learning English, the first question you ask is, what is your motivation? And sometimes people think they need English for one thing, but as time progresses, they realize they need it for something else, or they need more than just that goal. So they want to pass an exam and they think that's it, but then they realize they want to keep learning, they want to keep exploring, But I think, motivation is a huge part of making sure we continue with language learning, because I think languages are on one hand, they're very exciting and fascinating and interesting foreign languages. On the other hand, they are super complex and difficult, I think. And I know some people say English is an easy language. I don't know. Do you agree with that? Do you think English is an easy language, Tanvi? What's your...
No, I don't agree with that, because I guess whenever you go on to learn a language, you really have to, have that motivation and have that passion to learn that language. And if you don't have that, you shouldn't force yourself to do it in the first place. And I guess learning any language requires efforts, and nothing is easy, but with practice, it can be.
Exactly. If it comes easy, it's not really learning. Yeah, that's beautifully put. I agree. And I think, but to be honest, sometimes people learn things for the wrong reasons. Do you think that's bad? I mean, I personally think that you could do the right things for the wrong reasons, and sometimes it's not too bad. So people force themselves to learn English because they think they need it for work, for life, it's important. They're not really interested, but they push themselves. I mean, that's not too bad either. But I always try to ignite the passion in my students, to show them language is beyond just passing an exam or getting a good job. You can really enjoy speaking the language and listening and practicing it. Your world becomes bigger, richer, more interesting as a result of learning another language. So I always try to push my students to see, even if they have this specific goal that, I don't really want to, but I have to. No, but you can also find pleasure in learning and, expanding your knowledge. For sure. I don't know.
So those were like really good points that you mentioned, So when someone starts with a goal of, let's say, getting a job or, passing an exam, but I'm assuming that you are able to cultivate that, love to learn that language in them. And that is something so good, eventually that happens during that journey of learning the language.
Doesn't always happen with all the students. I think you can only ignite the fire if it's there.
Yeah.
You can't, or maybe you can plant a seed, maybe not today, but maybe in, say, a few years, it will flourish into a plant, so to speak, in abstract plant, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
wouldn't it be amazing, like, when your students come to you and let's say they've, passed that exam and got that job and they still learn it for the love of language that you have cultivated in them.
I think, as I said, yeah, it is beautiful, but I think it can't happen. The saying, this old saying, when the student is ready, the master or the teacher appears. And I think it's so true that students sometimes are just not ready for what you want to give them or have to give them. And that's perfectly fine, things come in their own time. I can never force someone to love doing something. You can kind of push them gently or inspire them, but you force them, to do it.
That's true with learning. So I just wanted to ask you, how was your experience of teaching your very first English class?
Yeah, try and think back. That was terrifying. It was a group lesson, actually.
Okay.
And I joined an English school in my hometown, and they said, okay, here are the books. You have a class in 2 days. Good luck.
Okay.
So no training, no explanation, nothing at all. So I read through all the teacher's book, the introduction. I thought about how to explain things. It was a very nervous experience for me, but then I realized that, people want to learn and you have to present information in the best way possible. Maybe I wasn't explaining things the way, someone who had the professional teaching background would, but I had the enthusiasm and I wanted to help. And I think that's when I started investigating the grammar rules, how to explain things, how it makes sense, thinking about things. But yeah, it was quite terrifying and stressful. I remember my very first classes, for sure. And I think I got nervous for a long time. Since then, even now when I get a new student, I feel a little bit nervous, not because of my ability to teach, but because I think teaching is more than just knowledge. It's that human connection that so I always say I'm not, thank you very much for saying I'm a good teacher, but I'm not a good teacher for everyone. Because of my personality, because of my background, because just the energy just doesn't mesh. You just don't feel comfortable. Someone just doesn't feel comfortable with me, and that's absolutely fine. So I always feel a little bit nervous. Are we going to hit it off? Are we not before the lesson for the first time? But yeah, that nervousness, at first it was nervousness about my knowledge and about my ability to explain things, to teach. Am I teaching the right things? Am I teaching in the best way, in the right way? Is it clear or not? So I had a lot of nervousness about that, for sure, at the start. But over time, when I saw the results, I realized I am doing something right. I must be doing something right if I'm seeing the results,
Oh, wow, that's nice. I mean, from the very first class, you took some certain takeaways, you worked on your grammar, and here you are teaching it in the best way possible according to you, if I'm not wrong.
I try. I think I always try to explore new ways. And I always say to my students, if you explore some logic, or if you find an interesting way to memorize something, share it with me, with the world, because I think it's knowledge and learning, it never stops. I can never say, that's it, I'm perfect at teaching. No way. There's always something more. I always get some question from a student, some sort of angle I've never even thought about. For example, I had a student ask me, what's the difference between using past continuous and present perfect continuous? I was doing and I have been doing. And I thought, why is she asking me this? And then I realized they are both about process, action. But, they kind of, one is more about recent and the other one is just past event. So I had to really think about that. I said, hold on, I'm confused. So as I was explaining things, I figured it out myself, why she drew, why she made that connection between the two and why someone might get confused between these two sentences. But I've never thought about it before. And I've never seen it in any of the books. Usually they put past simple, present perfect together, or past simple, past continuous together. These two tenses have never been put together. So I thought, fantastic. I love these kinds of questions that challenge you, make you think about grammar in a different way. So yeah, there's never, I think, a level of perfection that you can reach. You can always learn and explore more and find better ways and easier ways to explain to your students. Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes it is your students that make you a better teacher.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always say thank you. They always say thank you for the lesson. I say thank you for the lesson, because, it's also not just their questions. It's sometimes, just their passion, just the hard work they put in. You go, wow. And yes, one of my students recently, I said, wow, you've done so well today. All the past tenses, you were telling a story in such a good way. Not a single mistake I heard as well. It sounded very confident and natural as well. The other thing about grammar is sounding natural when you're using it, not forcing it. And she says, yeah, it's because you are a good teacher. I was, wow. I was shocked, pleasantly surprised. It's, music to my ears to hear things like that. But I think, I said to her, yeah, but you put in the hard work. You make me feel like a good teacher because of your efforts as well. So it's a very mutual process. Absolutely. A good teacher can help their students, but a good student can also help their teacher. It's a two-way street. And honestly, it really doesn't work with students who sort of come and just sit and go, okay, teach me.
Yeah.
Like very passive approach.
Yeah, I agree with that. So since we are speaking about students, so I wanted to ask you, what are the challenges that especially the Russian students face when they are learning English for the first time?
You mean from the very beginning?
Yes.
I don't really teach beginners. I start more elementary level, but I think there are different challenges. There are very few students that come with complete zero level, to be honest. Everyone has some level from school, from somewhere. I think there are different challenges. I think the pronunciation is a hard one, but I think the biggest one is fear.
Okay.
Fear to speak and to practice. And often students feel they need to get a certain level before they open their mouth. To an extent, it's true, but I think even elementary level, I say use simple phrases, okay? And that's actually, so yeah, that's another challenge. So obviously, because usually I get very intelligent students, they try to speak English, they try to translate from the native language into English. Okay, and then try to use complex words and complex structures because that's how they speak in the native language. As I said, they're intelligent people. And it's always like, no, simplify, dumb it down. It sounds very bad, dumb it down, but speak like a child. Simple. Build a simple phrase. Thinking in English. It's a huge challenge with some students. With some students, it's been great. They don't resist, and they it's that acceptance that you kind of start speaking like a child in a language. You're not that intelligent being that you are in your native language. You kind of, your IQ drops quite a few points in a way. And I think to accept that, for your ego to accept that, to say, okay, I'm a bit of an idiot now, but I'm going to grow and learn. So not to try to force my native language and to try to sound intelligent, but learn to build simple phrases, simple questions, simple lexes from the start. I think that's definitely a challenge, with the beginner and more elementary level students.
Okay. So it's like students, they are just so much excited to learn the language that they end up experimenting with it. And and I agree with you, to learn, if you have to learn a language, learn it like a child does it, because the child is not afraid to make that mistake, So even if there is
Yeah.
certain pronunciation going wrong, he's not really worried about it. He would, repeat it and, over time, just get good with it. So
Yeah, just accept it, go with it. Yeah. So many students I've had, they're very intelligent, very good jobs, and they go, oh, I sound like an idiot in English. Oh my God, I must sound so dumb. I'm like, no, you should applaud yourself for pushing yourself and trying and stepping out of your comfort zone. I think that's amazing. Or people say, oh, I'm too old to learn a language. And I think it's to an extent our brains work differently as we get older, of course. Maybe information retention is different, but we can learn more with associations, with logic, I think, as we get older. And I think that excuse is basically to say, I'm an important person. I've reached a lot in my life. I'm not willing to sound like an idiot in a foreign language. So I think it takes a level of humbleness. To accept that, as you said, to sound a bit like a child. Yeah. And in terms of a very interesting point, you mentioned experimenting with the language, which I never stopped that. I always say, try to put a sentence together, even if it's wrong. Sometimes with mistakes, and often with mistakes, you learn something new, you discover something new. So I think at the start, of course, try to speak correctly with more basic phrases, but as time goes on, as you increase your level, do not be afraid to kind of push yourself into the unknown territory and make mistakes and experiment, because those experimentations are when you really learn. So I think you mentioned a very important point, and I think it is important as well, essential in language learning to not be afraid to experiment a little bit.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Okay. So you've mentioned that, you already know Russian, you learned English since you had to move to UK, and then you've also trying to learn Italian, German, Spanish, and French. So I just wanted to know, how has learning a language benefited you? Or you can, or I can say, or to put it in this way, how has learning a language, what impact learning a language has had on your life?
Good question. I think for some time at the beginning, I think it was just the pleasure of learning. I enjoyed the ability to explore, to just learn new things, to ability to communicate in a foreign language. Learning Italian has made for some fantastic holiday experiences.
Okay.
I met some very nice Italian people who loved and appreciated that I spoke Italian. So I think in terms of human connection, and, people like English people think, okay, we'll go on holiday, everyone speaks English. In Italy, in many places, not the case. And I wouldn't have been able to interact with the locals and meet so many people as I did if I didn't speak Italian. Okay. So I think that really enriched my experience. In terms of, for example, French language, watching some films in the original language, I think is a beauty. And I always say to students who watch American or British series in their native language, I go, you have no idea what you're missing. By hearing the original actor's voice, their intonation, hearing the original language, it's no comparison at all to watching, the dubbed version of things. So I think that's certainly been enriching as well. And in terms of the job, I think when I used to work in finance, it didn't really help me at all, because I was an accountant and it wasn't necessary to speak languages at all. But more recently, as I started teaching, speaking French, Spanish, Italian has really helped me to connect with my students who are from these countries, to understand why they're making certain mistakes, to recognize the false friends, so that's really helpful as well. And I think the maybe more hidden benefit is just expanding your mind, logic. They say Alzheimer's will not hurt your brain. If you keep on learning languages, you can keep that problem away from you because of how many neurons are connected in your brain when you're learning a language. That's why it's so hard. It is hard. But, that's another advantage of it. And I think the connection to cultures, just expanding your world, language is more than just a bunch of words. It's a new culture. It's a new world. For example, in Spanish, the housewife, I don't know if you speak a little Spanish or not. No?
I do speak a little bit of Spanish.
Ah, fantastic. Okay. So, housewife is ama de casa. Okay. Which means the soul of the house. And I think that's so beautiful that they see the woman who looks after the house as the soul of the house. And that tells me something about the culture, So these little things are very, very beautiful as well. They really open up your world, they make it richer, wider, more interesting, more exciting. I think learning and knowledge is just makes life so much more interesting, for sure. Yeah. So I don't know, I've listed quite a lot of benefits there. I don't know if I missed something that you think.
No. I mean, those were just some really fantastic points that you've listed down. I mean, you wouldn't have gotten close to that culture or, to that particular country that you went to had you not known the language. And, it's good to have the perspective of those people there, who might not know English, but they convey their ideas and thoughts in their own language. So, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to speak to a man's heart, speak in his native language, right?
Yeah.
Not to his brain.
Yeah, I agree with that. And especially your point about, it enhances the brain. So, yes, I guess it's a proven point that the more languages you learn, your brain works in a better manner. And
Exactly. Even if you don't use them directly all the time, you really make your brain work better, become more intelligent, and that could be a great attraction for many for learning a language, for sure. And I think just one thing I remembered, my Italian friends that we studied French with, sounds strange, in the UK. That sounds really weird.
Okay.
I remember I spoke Italian to him, English as well. I was on the phone talking Russian to my mom, and we were speaking French together, of course, in class. He said, "Oh my God, and I didn't realize it, but he said, you sound like you look and sound like a completely different person when you speak each language. Like you are different people, like you're four different people." So not to encourage the split personality disorder, but I think you become more interesting as a person as well, because you can kind of sound and connect to different languages and different ways of thinking. And it was amazing that I was so grateful that he gave me that feedback, because it's very hard to realize it yourself. But when someone else tells you and says that, I think it's like, wow. So I'm not one Maria, I'm like four Marias.
Wow, that's just so amazing to, listen to what your friend said. And
do you feel the same, Tanvi, when you speak your I don't know what your native Indian language is, and English? English, of course, is your native language, but I mean, what's the do you feel like a different person a little bit when you speak in one or the other?
Yes, I mean, yes. Sometimes, people around are like, "Oh my God, you speak so many languages." But then I'm like, okay, those are like regional languages, and I just know English and one other foreign language. So I guess, I mean, sometimes, it happens that you don't appreciate yourself enough. But there is something that you shouldn't do, and, be grateful for that, like for your own ability that you were able to learn so many languages. And
that experience is amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful to be having this conversation with a linguist like you. I mean, if we meet someday, I would like to have an autograph by you.
No, there are people who speak many more languages. I admire them. But see, that's the thing. I take it for granted, my own experience, like what you just said. I don't really value it. I think, oh my God, I need to improve my French more, my Spanish more. I really need to get there and get the German off the ground for once. And finally, but you're right. It's like we don't appreciate what other people have, what we have, whereas others see the value in that. So thank you for your lovely feedback.
Yeah,
so nice to hear.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. And so it's like it's general human tendency, to what you call. I'm so sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
To devalue. No, that's fine. Yeah. Everyone will get stuck for words sometimes. Devalue, probably. Devalue your abilities or skills or experience, maybe.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that.
And that happens with students as well. Sometimes they go, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I'm not making any progress. I'm like, you keep hustling. One day, just suddenly you make a leap in terms of your knowledge. Never put yourself down. Never. Oh, I've been studying for so long and I still don't understand. And it's language learning is not a linear thing. You shouldn't beat yourself up for whatever. Little, baby steps are already steps. Just because you are moving in the right direction, you should already applaud yourself. And the more you encourage yourself, the more you will motivate yourself to do more. If you keep on feeling down about lack of progress, you will just give up very easily, I think. And I'm just remembering, my head is full of memes and pictures. It's a very strange brain. But they said, if run in a direction you want to go into. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. If you can't crawl, then just lie down in the direction that you want to go into. At least lie in that direction. It's already smart.
Oh, that's something so awesome that you came up with. And one thing I wanted to mention is that what we generally do is we compare ourselves with others, and I guess that is the biggest mistake we do. And instead, what we should do is, compare us with our previous self and then evaluate how far we have come. And that is something, that motivates you to keep on going.
Absolutely. Yeah. Easier said than done, though. Beautifully said. Completely agree with it. Probably a complete failure in that, in practice. I think it's one of those things that's so much easier to talk about, say, that's the way to do it. But in practice, it's like we're always fighting inner demons, and I think language learning brings out all the demons possible, laziness, comparing yourself to others, making excuses, beating yourself up. All the demons that you have will come out when you are learning the language. And I think that's probably another reason why people give up. So I think you have to confront those demons and conquer them or make friends with them, whatever it is, you have to kind of deal with it. So language learning is more than just, I always say, more than just memorizing or studying. It's battling with yourself, with your own insecurities or weaknesses. So that's another challenge, I think, that takes place.
So we can say that, learning language. So when you're learning a language, it also teaches you, in a way, to lead a life. As you talked about, battling with your own self and, getting up from the bed and giving up that laziness and all the things that you mentioned. So,
developing willpower, pushing yourself, It's not easy, but you have to find a reason to do it, the motivation. If you have the motivation, that will keep you going for sure. But I think willpower is helpful too. And I think that's another thing about a teacher that I find. Students, for example, they take a break from me and they say, oh, we'll keep studying and come back to us. I haven't done anything, Maria, I'll be honest. I need you to kind of cheerleader and push and support me, so I think that's another invaluable thing that teachers can do, is guide you and kind of make you feel not embarrassed, but want to learn and progress. So there's value in that, of getting a professional teacher for sure. Someone who's your coach and motivator and supporter, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes as teachers, you have to play so many different roles.
That's a good point. Very, very good point. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So since you are talking about teaching, so with the onset of the pandemic, the teaching has gone online and there have been no offline classes happening. So what, according to you, are the pros and cons of online and offline teaching? And what do you prefer?
I think in terms of learning, there is no difference. In terms of human interaction, there's a little bit of difference. I'm an introvert, so for me, it works perfectly, hiding behind my computer screen. No, I did love the interaction with face-to-face as well. But I think in terms of learning, and I've had students who were physically close to me, and then they chose studying over Skype to come in and seeing me face-to-face. There's a huge convenience of being in the comfort of your home, not having to clean up, not having to make extra effort to look extra nice, all these things. And I think these days with technology, and teachers need to know how to take advantage of technology. I've taken a French lesson with someone who had no idea how to use technology, and it was frustrating as hell. Because I think it's a teacher's responsibility. If you teach online, get familiar with the tools. Make sure you use all the relevant tools in the best way possible to not hinder that experience. But I think if the teacher is taking advantage of them, it's not. It doesn't make a difference in terms of learning, I think, at all. There are people who still resist learning online because they feel the physical presence just helps them focus and learn better, not get distracted. I think it's a matter of personal preference, and I've had students also who had never taken the online lessons before, but once they did, they loved it. They said, "Oh my God, it's so convenient. There's no difference. I'm still learning." I'm like, "What did you think? You'll be sitting in front of a computer and doing nothing?" No, of course not. So I think there's still value in terms of physical presence as well, especially with group lessons. But I think it also depends on the person. Some people love that physical context, and people prefer that screen separation, but still getting the same knowledge and the same explanation and the same value for money, so.
Yeah, I agree with you, so while I was learning Spanish, so I had to, my commute time used to be 1 hour, and then there used to be 1 hour of teaching. So when it came online, the commute time reduced to 0. And, if you have a penny or two saved, then it doesn't really hurt, right? So, online teaching has really helped in a way. Yes, I mean, I do miss conversing with my, with my fellow classmates, but I guess that's okay. I mean, we can do it on the online class as well. But yes, even if given a chance, even I would go for an online class.
Fair enough. Cool.
Yeah. So I just wanted to just few questions I just wanted to ask you, and one of them is, have you had any embarrassing language errors?
I think, and I think I always try to think, why are you asking that question? I try to read between the lines. That it's okay, guys, if you have, I don't know who will be watching this, I guess both English learners and teachers, but I think it's okay to have an embarrassing moment. And if you haven't had an embarrassing moment, you haven't really practiced the language, you haven't really pushed yourself. Okay, so you must have, put it on your bucket list. You must have an embarrassing moment when speaking a foreign language,
Yeah. So,
What happened to me, I think it wasn't like making mistakes never made me feel embarrassed. But once when I already spoke Italian, I came to Italy. And that year I started learning Spanish, and I went to Spain a few times earlier that year.
okay.
And suddenly I was asking someone for directions, and I don't know what happened. I felt like I was possessed, but instead of Italian, I had Spanish coming out of my mouth, and my eyes were wide, and I'm like, what? I was trying to hear what was coming out of him, like that. What is going on? Like I couldn't control myself, And later I was like, what went on in my brain? It was amazing, the switch. And the guy still responded to me because Italian and Spanish are quite similar. So he still made sense of what I was asking. He was very nice and kind to still make an effort with me. But that was quite embarrassing. I was embarrassed in front of myself. I'm like, what the hell? I can't control what's coming out of my mouth, That was really weird.
So yeah. Turns out it was more funny than embarrassing.
Exactly. And I think, you can have fun with it, especially in this sort of social situations. I think it can be a little embarrassing, maybe sometimes in the workplace or something, but don't be afraid to laugh at yourself. I think that's another important part. If you take yourself too seriously, learning a language is not for you, because you can't take yourself too seriously. You need to be okay with making mistakes or looking silly sometimes or having an embarrassing moment and just laughing about it and make it turn into memorable fun moments. Why not?
And I guess you remember that incident only because it was embarrassing, so it turns out like it was a funny memory for you.
Exactly. It's a fun memory. It's a good memory, and it's something I learned about the language, that when you learn languages that are very similar, you might think that it helps, but actually it's super confusing. So another time I was talking about gamba. My gamba, in Italian, gamba means leg. In Spanish, gamba means prawn. So I was looking at my legs and saying, I don't know why I was talking about my legs, but I was talking about my gambas to a Spanish person. And he was like, why are you talking about prawn? Like, oh, damn it, Italian, So, when you learn similar languages, it can actually be more confusing than helpful, for sure. So be careful doing that. Learning two similar languages at the same time. I'm not sure if it's a good idea. From my experience, it wasn't a good idea.
Okay. So I guess that's a good point for our listeners to know that, learning two languages that are a bit similar is not a good idea, as you suggested.
It depends on the level. If you're already fluent in one, or if you have a very advanced level in one, you might be okay going to another. But if you have a sort of intermediate or upper intermediate level like I had, I think it can be super confusing. Sometimes you have no choice. You must learn Spanish and Italian, for example, at the same time. That's that. But I think specifically choosing to learn two languages at the same time because they're similar can lead to confusion. The subjunctive, I don't know if you guys know what the subjunctive is, but it's this abstract tense of imagination, of desire, of hope, these kinds of things. And the rules are different in Spanish, French, and Italian. They all have subjunctive, but the rules are different for all of them, right? So that's can make your head explode trying to which one is which, it can be really frustrating as well, rather than helpful.
I thought subjunti was only exist in Spanish, but it was an information for me that you told me that it exists in French and other languages
and
as
Italian.
Well. Okay. That was nice to know.
There you go. It's something new.
Okay. So last but not the least, so what are some book, movie, apps, or music recommendations do you have for our listeners so that they can improve their English language?
In short, I do not. The reason why is because I think in terms of films, I always say, watch what you like. Watch what you've seen before in your native language, okay? Again, depends on your level. Series, the same thing. In terms of apps, I think apps don't, for example, Duolingo is a very popular language learning app.
Yes.
I used it. I felt it helped to some extent, but I think these sort of learning apps gives you, sorry, I'll probably be beaten down with sticks with this app creators, but I think they give you a full sense of learning.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like you progress, you take step by step, you repeat 10 times, and suddenly you become intermediate level. I mean, seriously?
Yeah.
Is that language learning? It's not. And it structurizes it so much. I mean, it's maybe helpful for beginner level, elementary level to just sort of get the structure of the language, but you have to get out of those apps and stop, wasting time. I think it's a waste of time from this sort of pre-intermediate, intermediate level. You have to expand beyond them, and they will just give you a full sense of learning. Like, oh yeah, I've progressed to this level. Have you really? I mean, can you read? Can you speak? Can you listen? Can you communicate? That's the real test of the language, not the app. I know people use Quizlet, and I recommend Anki as well for vocabulary learning. I haven't looked too much into Quizlet, but Anki's principle is, I don't know if you know app Anki, AMKI.
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's free. The good news is free for Windows and for Android users. It's paid for Apple users. Discrimination, I know, but it happens. I think if you can afford an Apple product, you can buy Anki as well. Maybe that's the logic. So it works on spaced repetition. Okay, so it's completely, you control the content. Okay, so you can add pictures, you can add audios. So it's like flashcards, electronic flashcards. Okay. What's the difference from writing on paper and doing flashcards? Of course, you can add picture and audio, and the other thing is, you have spaced repetition. So first, you repeat every day, then you repeat every week, then every month. The app doesn't decide that for you. You have a voting system. If it's good, easy, good, difficult, or very hard, something like that. So if you say it's very hard, you will hear it every day. Yeah? If you suddenly remember it, say it's easy, there will be more and more and more gap in terms of how often the app will remind you of these flashcards, right? So I think it's amazing because, that's how our brain works. Some things we'll remember the first time, some things we need to repeat twice, some things we need to repeat 10 times, And I think that's what's better about it. If you do a word list in book, it's good, but you have to go through every word, no matter if it's easy. It doesn't matter if it's easy or hard. So I think that app allows you to do that, and you can do it on the go. You can create the flashcards in your computer, sync them to your mobile, and wherever you are, you have 5 minutes, revise the words. Okay. So I do recommend that app for sure. I think it's very, very helpful, but you have to use it correctly. You have to create the best flashcards. So for example, if you have the word explosion, you might want to write the word explosion in your native language, or you might get a picture from the internet that shows explosion. Yeah. So you kind of also decide, what's my emotional memory like? Will I remember the picture better? Or maybe I'll remember better a situation like sentence, so that kind of makes it harder, but at the same time, it gives you control of your learning. So yeah, I do like this app.
Wow, that was like one of the best recommendations. I mean, even I was amazed. I mean, the way you told about this app. So yeah, I guess this should help our listeners to learn English in a better manner.
Yeah, and Quizlet is a little bit easier. I think they have the similar principle to Anki, but I think it's a paid app, firstly. And secondly, I think the pictures, the picture selection is probably limited, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. But Quizlet is a very popular app as well, definitely.
Wow, that was a wonderful recommendation. So my last question.
Sorry, just to answer one thing to add. I think it's important.
Okay.
If you're doing your reading, select the materials that are interesting for you to start with. Of course, you should push yourself to expand into new topics, new spheres. But I think it's very important that you read what you like. For example, recently my student showed me a book about classical stories in English.
Okay.
And he didn't look very enthusiastic about it. And I said, do you actually want to read this book? He went, no. And when the chances are you're not going to be reading it. So choose start with things that are interesting to you, articles, books, don't, when you're still learning the language, when you're still in sort of intermediate level or maybe upper intermediate, do what you like, do what you enjoy, start with that, then you can push yourself to do more things. But, don't start with the most difficult, the most boring thing just because you think you have to do it, Wow. Sorry, I had to make that point. I think it's very, very important.
No. Yes, it was indeed very important because, you cannot, if you pick up something boring and something that is tough, you would immediately leave that. And it's great that you pointed out to pick things that are, that interests you the most. So, yeah. And,
sorry to interrupt you.
That's perfectly fine. So, while I was going through your website, I came across your courses on Udemy and certain other courses that you said that you've completed recently. So would you like to tell us about that?
Sure. Thank you for asking. I have it on Udemy, and I also have it. I partnered up with another wonderful teacher, Speak Like David, who has great courses as well on fluency, on other things. For the moment, I'm working on upper intermediate grammar. This course is intermediate grammar. Okay. The reason why I started with intermediate grammar is I realized this is where a lot of people get stuck, where a lot of people don't fundamentally understand. And it's one of the big things that stops them to progress to the next level, to upper, intermediate, to advanced level. Okay. I felt that it wasn't explained properly in books, or maybe teachers didn't explain it properly. I started with the idea, I don't want to keep explaining the same thing again and again in my lessons. So I created the course for my students as well. But then I thought, why not give opportunity to people who have never, who might not be able to afford private teachers, who maybe don't have the time, who are independent learners perhaps, but to give them a chance to learn this grammar directly, and to learn it the way I would teach it in my, private individual class, sharing the screen, diagrams, examples, explanations, common mistakes, all those things. So if people say is grammar important, yes, it is. I think you get to a stage when some advanced grammar, it doesn't matter so much, but I think intermediate grammar is fundamental for communication, to make it clear what you're trying to say, to make to get your points across and to be understood properly. It can be super important. So the way I've designed it, I also highlight when, if you make mistake with articles here and there in communication, it's not the end of the world. But sometimes it can cause confusion in some situations. Yes. So if you say, did you see the film? Specific film. It's a specific film, but did you see any interesting film or a film recently? It's any kind of film, So it just helps to clarify what you're trying to say. So I think if someone feels interested in that, by all means, I can give the link to both sites with David and with the Udemy. You get on Udemy, you definitely get 30 days cashback guarantee. And I think David also provides cashback guarantee, money back guarantee if you're not satisfied, if you don't feel you like this course, no problem as well. So if anyone's interested in improving and making sure their grammar, their fundamental intermediate grammar is, all the needs are covered, please come and subscribe.
Yes. I'll definitely put up the links to your courses. And
thank you.
Like the course that you mentioned, it sounds like a really comprehensive one. And
I covered fundamentals, really everything possible. Yeah. And I still have sections I want to add. It is complete, but I still have in my mind some things I want to add and explain a little bit more, maybe, maybe more examples. So it will be evolving as well. I will be adding things to it for sure. Yeah. And you got all my explanations. You have PDFs. You can download them for your use and save them, keep them as well. So I think that's helpful for sure. And I have been using this course with my actual students, trying to say, do you understand? Is it clear? Is everything okay? And I said, it's been very useful, very helpful, very good, very clear. So, I think it's one thing for me to think I explained well. It's quite another thing to see that my students understood grammar thanks to this course. So
So I remember I myself gone through the course, the overview on Udemy, and I could see some really good reviews as well. So I guess this course is really going to help our listeners.
I hope so. I hope so. That's the spread the knowledge. That's the goal.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned Speak Like David. I remember PaperTrue has collaborated with him for some content creation, like a year back or something. So it's good that you mentioned him, and then we'll also.
He's a very good coach. He's great. He's really great. And the fact that he's so valued, he looked at my course, he said, it's really good. Rather than creating a course myself, I prefer that you come and, collaborate with me. That was like, wow. So, I did something. Once again, I always try, I'm very a self-conscious person. I'm very self-critical. So I always look for other people's feedback, especially another professional teacher or students, I think it's very important too. So, I mean, I'm happy with the content. I know I did the right thing there. So yeah, no doubts about that now. Now I'm confident.
Yeah, you should be, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Maria. It was a really, really interesting conversation. And my
pleasure.
I got to learn a few things from you, and I hope it really helps our listeners as well. So thank you so much for joining.
Fantastic. Thanks for inviting me and having me and talking to me.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I had an amazing time recording it, and I hope you all enjoyed it too. If you wish to learn the English language more professionally, then please head over to the comprehensive courses created by Maria. I have shared the link to the courses in the description of this episode. Do check them out. You can follow Maria on Instagram as British English with Maria. It would make us happy if you follow PaperTrue as well. We post lots of cool stuff about English language writing on our social media accounts and our resource center. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, The PaperTrue Studio, to be notified of the new episodes. Share it with your friends or anyone who would be interested to listen to it. You can also watch this episode on our YouTube channel. The link is in the description. If you have any particular topics you think we should be talking about, or anyone who might be interested in being featured on our podcast, write to us on thestudio@papertrue.com. We have more exciting episodes lined up for you. Until then, this is me, your host Tanvi, signing off. Thank you and have a wonderful time.